Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today, I'm super excited. I am with Paola Piccinno, fractional CMO and a powerhouse, an ABM powerhouse. We've been talking for a few months now, and every time I feel more energized. So I just felt like we had to record one of those sessions so other people could get some of that energy and some of those amazing insights on ABM and how to do really those transitions and the work that you do around and large enterprises with ABM. So you are, as I mentioned, a fractional CMO working with primarily large enterprises around ABM programs. So really great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me from all the other side of the world. Thanks.
Yes, and Paola is in Australia. So really we're connecting different realms. And super excited. And today's topic, we're going to be unpacking the top 10 most common mistakes organizations do when transitioning to ABM and what to do in order to avoid them. So that's going to be our main discussion, our theme tonight. But before that, I wanted to ask you, Paolo, because you're working with companies who are doing those transitions, why transition to ABM at all? So what are the stages that you see companies considering it? And what are the motivations behind it?
Thank you for this opportunity. I like how we're not jumping straight into the ABM conversation, but we go back to the why, which is great. And I rarely stop and think about this. I think I could find different categories that, I can, when I think about my clients, either at a scale-up level, as well as then if I go more into enterprise, the motivations, they go across size and industry and region, country, where these organizations come from. Some of them, they really realize pretty early on in their journey that they can't afford not to do what other successful competitors or players in the market are doing, or their peers perhaps in other regions. So they do know that in this climate right now, they cannot not consider, at the very least, consider account-based marketing, either one-to-one, one-to-few, perhaps a little bit of a programmatic one-to-many approach of ABM, but they all I feel more and more, they come to me, they want to run pilots. Organizations that up until 18 months ago didn't even know how to spell ABM. Now they do know, they've heard enough perhaps, or they're scared enough from what the market is doing or not doing that they are considering at the very least a pilot. Another motivation is specifically for, perhaps is within this category, clients organizations that want to expand into bigger regions, especially UK and the US, which are huge monsters if you come from ANZ, Australia, New Zealand. So they do want to run pilots in Australia, which a lot of organizations do, given the size of the market, the type of market here, or New Zealand. And then 6 months later, they feel ready to launch into those bigger markets. Other reasons are when an organization has an executive sponsor for ABM already within the business. And that could be someone at the really senior level in sales or marketing, or perhaps even CEO, that would be amazing, or founder that has experienced really great success from ABM in a previous company. And they know how well it works, how the RR ticks in just the right boxes to achieve the revenue goals, and wants to bring the same success in the current role. That's great when that happens. And another reason, motivation, is when some organizations don't know exactly what ABM is, but they have heard, they started to hear noise around, and they know that what they're doing is not good enough, and it's not going to be successful. It's not going to get them that promotion or allow them to even keep their job, sadly. So they do know they need to be curious about learning more. That's when I start with clients running foundation sessions, the workshops. It's all about education. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that also what we're seeing is that, at least from a data perspective, we're seeing those diminishing returns of marketing. So we're seeing this gradual erosion of marketing effectiveness. And some companies get to that point where it's just not becoming really cost effective. And it's really from that frustration, or really that need to do a very substantial shakedown and say, okay, whatever classic approach we were using is failing. And there's a lot of discussion around the failure, the death of the MQL from one hand, and everybody's marketers. We love to kill off things as much as we love to create acronyms. We love to kill them as well. But that there is a very big push and struggle to generate outcomes. And I think, at least from scale-up's perspective, you see that companies are really struggling, especially when they don't have those big budgets and they don't have that big opportunity to, wait out a few bad years. They don't have a few bad years. If they have a few bad quarters, they're done, right? So they have to deliver very quickly. How much are you seeing that as a pressure out of the groups that you've mentioned? How much is that a motivation?
Oh yeah, it's massive. It's sad, it's sad because it's not, you wouldn't want that to be a motivation for someone to send you a brief. It's not a great starting point, but you'll have to work, you'll have to work with what you have. But yeah, it's happening more and more, especially and that startups, between startup and SMB, type of companies. And that's when a pilot can work really well. Although there is a lot of pressure put on that one pilot. One thing that I always say to my clients is accept. That's not what we want, obviously, but accept that the one first pilot you ran, for whatever reason, which we will have to analyze, might not work in the first place. I never want to tell people that, you're going to run one pilot and it's going to work 100%, and then it's going to be a successful campaign in any country. And also don't want to tell them the opposite, that if it doesn't work, well, they better go back to pay-per-click and demand generation, just stick to that. And that's not the case. It's the great lesson we have there, in case the pilot doesn't succeed, is that we can go back, sales marketing team and the external supplier, and analyze the reasons why, or the one reason, normally it's a mix of a couple of them, why it hasn't worked, and fix. I've seen that happen and succeed really well. When they went back, they fixed a couple of things that didn't work. We might talk about them today as well. And then they ran the second pilot, and it was a great success. And now all this organization does is account-based marketing for the right accounts, of course. So do not stop at the first pilot if it doesn't give you the results you were expecting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's a case of not throwing the baby with the water, right? It's like, we have to make this transition. It's not an if, it's just when, and as long as we're not doing it, we're just either delaying it. And I think this is a great time to transition to those mistakes. So those common mistakes that when companies made that decision to either pilot ABM or even go full in, what are those top 10 mistakes that you've seen, and maybe offer some suggestions on how to mitigate them? I'll read out the mistake, and we can kind of
thank you.
So the first one, sure. The first one is building the wrong or bloated target account list.
Yes. Okay. So here, very often, perhaps too often, the sales team wants to demand the accounts that need to be targeted in a specific account-based marketing program. And I do agree that the sales team is the one team within an organization that holds the closest insights. They're some of the closest people to the customers. And after that, there will be your SDR, call center, customer success. But in some organizations, the sales team is the closest that you can get to a customer. So I do believe they have some great insights. Still, I would always recommend and that's what I do with my clients, to run what I call an account selection process, where we, at the very least, go through the account list. We ask ourselves in this case, I would facilitate a session where I do ask the right questions to understand what criteria have you been using to select those, why those and not others. I would question line by line, account by account, whether they do deserve to have a place in this program. And I keep relating things back to the bigger strategic objectives. So I bring it. It sounds really simplistic. I'm not saying it's easy. I may make it sound easy, but it's not as straightforward, especially when you in practice, you have a room of very skeptical, and perhaps rightly so, sales team members that they think they know it all and they have done all the account background due diligence and they know, but then you have the marketing team frustrated. So the role of whoever comes in, a fractional, an agency, a consultant, is almost that facilitator, that, you know, change management person that needs to align everybody. And it's in nobody's interest to have the wrong list at the get-go, because it will translate in a disaster later in the program, and it's a waste of resources, and it's a waste of money and time, and then that company is never going to want to run an ABM again. So I don't mind being the bad cop and validate, at the very least, validate the list that the sales team has come up with. It's very important.
So do you think, Paula, sometimes it comes from this point that let's save time. We already know our target list. So let's just skip ahead of that instead of maybe taking the opportunity of looking again at something that's so foundational. Who are we speaking with? Why are we speaking to them? And kind of just re-examining those core beliefs again, even if you get maybe to similar results, but
absolutely,
process worth doing?
So a bit of that is, yes, it's a waste of time. A bit of that is the skepticism that comes from years of sales and marketing, especially in big enterprises, having worked in silos. So unfortunately, I see a lot of sales team that have lost trust in the marketing team. So they would be coming into the room, as I said, and rightly so, if they've been burned before, asking, why are you wasting my time? I should be out there speaking, you know, playing golf with clients, speaking with prospects, and take what I'm saying for granted. But also some of this comes from low awareness of what account-based marketing truly is. And that's not from the sales team, it's throughout the organization. So I always bring it back to the educational piece, is that everybody's on the same page, you know, when it comes to every stage, what happens at every stage. And this account selection process doesn't have to take hours, by the way. The sales team is really welcome to come with their list, and then might take us less time to go through the questions. It might just take us a couple of hours. So it's nothing. 2 hours investment is nothing in the long term if you look at the overall account-based marketing program. So hopefully I answered your question.
Oh, perfect. And again, a great segue. You mentioned the silos. So the second most common, keeping sales and marketing in their old silos.
Yes, I will start by saying that although I've been mentioning a lot enterprises so far, and a lot of founders of startups or scale-ups I speak to, they might ask me when it comes to ABM, they say, oh, but you know, we're so small. We don't see this problem of sales and marketing teams. We don't really have that because it's one person doing both, or our teams are so small that they're talking to each other. I still think that the earlier an organization structures the way they work in a way that it's ABM led, or sales and marketing working together, the sooner they can be successful in their account-based marketing. And also it's going to be better in the long term, because they're going to avoid to become those big enterprises, which hopefully one day they will become, if that's where they want to go, where it's too late. So it's a lot easier to fix those miscommunications, misalignments, different ways of working very early, when you only have one person in the sales team and a couple of people on the marketing team. Then later on, when they are not even talking to each other, and there is a lot of, again, skepticism, there's disrespect at times, and the problems become bigger. So I just want to insist that the sales and marketing alignment is as crucial for small teams, for small organizations, so startup level, as much as it is for enterprise.
So when you come, how would you recommend to set the stage for that? So how would you help with that, breaking down those silos when you come into an organization?
It needs to happen before we even start talking about account selection. So if an organization has never launched an account-based marketing program before, for me, that education piece where I come in, or the supplier comes in and gives a training session, a few modules designed specifically for the sales team and for the marketing team to get them on board since the beginning as to what's required from them, what's going to be required in terms of time management and time involvement. That the sooner the different steps of account-based marketing are defined and you can take them on the journey, the easier it is for them to get on board with you. So I think there is a lot in that initial awareness, building the awareness within the organization and building the trust that can happen. It does not happen overnight. This problem of the sales and marketing alignment is not going to be fixed by one, although amazing, fractional CMO or one CMO or one session in one go. It's just not happening. It's a long process and it requires sometimes even over a year. Hopefully less, but we're talking months. So I never want to sugarcoat or lie or pretend that this is a plug and play, set and forget. It's just action. It's not what it is. It's the best way. I always have to define account-based marketing outside of the tailored messaging and personalization, etc., which is all true. It is the way I see it. I'm not sure if even AI will give you this definition, but in my experience, it's what I feel is that it's a change management piece. Yes, it is a marketing program that involves data and amazing marketing, tools and great resources and people. But what I feel I am at times with my clients is that I'm that facilitator, that I'm taking them through a journey of trust and building something together and working all really hard towards the same goal. The clearer we can be as a marketing team or as external suppliers on what we're working towards together and how much time I am going to ask from the sales team and the product team and creative team along the journey, the better. So clarity, transparency, they all help to build trust. Another thing that helps in that sales and marketing is a long journey, as I said, but it's starting to have early wins. Which in ABM is not necessarily, the main goal. ABM is normally run by organizations that have really long sales cycles. So that for the meatiest KPIs, you'll have to wait 18 months. But there are some quick wins that you can feed back to the sales team to build momentum and to prove to internally to the executives that it's working and it's not another digital marketing campaign that you can just set and forget, as I said. There are a lot of elements. Look, we could talk about this for the whole session. The sales and marketing piece is just, it's a basic, necessity for every ABM program, but it is a long journey and there's not one agency or one person that can do it, by themselves. One last thing on that, what helps a lot in this alignment is to find one or a couple of sales ambassadors. So key people within the sales, again, that sounds so easy. Yes, of course, go and find me those sales ambassadors. It's not easy. So you're in luck, and I have been before. Like I mentioned, the client, amazing. I've had an amazing experience with them. Schneider Electric, construction client company from France. I was working with them in Australia, and the head of sales was a big fan of ABM. He had seen it working really well before. So once we had a head of sales extremely passionate, possibly more than us as an agency, about ABM, it made our life and the marketing team's life a lot easier. And guess what? The results were outstanding. And I don't think in that case, my team and I did a better job, than we did with other clients. But what really made the difference, that the program is pretty much the same, the steps are the same, but what really made the difference was to have that really senior salesperson so involved and into ABM, and he was the testimonial. So for every time we had a meeting, the sales team was all showing up, and they had ABM within their KPIs, which helps. So they had ABM related KPIs that were measured on monthly. So their commissions were they were also based on the success of account-based marketing, and that should be the case every time.
Fantastic. So, yeah. I want to double click on the change management. I think that's something that's not discussed very thoroughly. I think it's being kind of glossed on when doing ABM. They're not understanding the core. And especially when we talk about sales teams, these folks, from my experience, they have these playbooks, they have these methodologies, very strict, doing change there. And when you think about it, the biggest challenge, it's a marketing imposed change on sales, which makes it even so much more difficult because they would go and say, I don't want to change anything. Maybe I have my win rates the same, but the pipeline isn't growing. So it's a marketing problem. Why should I solve marketing problem? My marketing needs to bring me better leads and more leads. My processes are fine. So, and I think what you're mentioning about finding those ambassadors and doing those quick wins, I've had some discussions with customers that have did this A/B test, maybe selected a certain group that ran the pilot. And they said, look, these guys, the sales guys are outperforming your non-ABMs, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. So you'd better transition just from a FOMO perspective. So it's maybe a bit, but have them wanting to transition as opposed to, look, we are changing and kind of imposing it.
No, it's never going to work. Absolutely. Fortunately, in my career, I've never seen any ABM run that way. It would never work. If it becomes a marketing program, it should not be. Someone I was speaking to, a very expert ABM from Germany, he told me once that ABM as a definition, just as a name, really is misleading. It should be called ABSM. He lost me there. I'm like, what? It's already enough acronyms in marketing. And he was right. He said it should be really called account-based sales and marketing, because in all the workshops, strategic workshops and sessions that we run in account-based marketing program, and there is a few throughout, it's never the marketing team inviting the sales team. It's not a marketing team meeting where sales is invited to. It is sales and marketing together. They are doing this together. And this is not just me rebranding marketing in a way, let's do it together. It's crucial. The amount of times I repeat that in my upfront education foundation sessions, but I don't mind. It's about repetition. A lot of this is about repetition. It's an educational piece. It's change, but it's about how you approach change and how you propose it to an organization. Of course, they will be running away and scared if you come in as an external supplier, even, and just tell them that they'll have to change the way they work from day one. So there is a lot of empathy. That's another thing I love. Cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence in working with sales teams and marketing teams, even if it's about something as dry as analyzing the intent data about some accounts. There is still a lot of psychology, if you like, behind on how you communicate to those stakeholders. Those people are busy. We all are. But the sales team, especially, we don't need them to be in an extra meeting if it's not necessary. It's in no one's interest to have the sales team in another workshop. I would rather have them, and the founders, of course, startups and scale-ups also want to have their sales teams out there with prospects and clients. So it needs to be really worth their time. They need to understand that they're there for a reason. So repeating the why behind the objective, the strategic objective as to why we're all spending this time together sooner in the program will let them understand what comes next and the role they play within this ABM program.
Fantastic. So I think that leads us to the next one, and you touched on this lack of executive sponsorship. How critical is that when you come into an organization? Like you mentioned, sometimes you're brought in maybe to create that executive sponsorship. Maybe they're not there. Maybe they're there. And what to do if it's not there?
Run. No, don't run. If it's not there, look, there are a few things you can do, such as, at the very least, you want to have the marketing team on your side. Someone must be wanting to do this ABM. Otherwise, in the first place, this conversation would have never happened with them. So how do you get the executives on board? Having adding quick wins earlier on in the program to the KPIs. I always like to split the KPIs for any ABM program I run in the short, medium, and long term. And of course, the the ones that are going to get closer to our revenue goals are the ones in the long term. But if we can already start having smaller wins in the short and medium term, those can be something that the business can bring back to the executives, to the decision makers, to the founders, and start demonstrating how this investment, this program is not another average marketing campaign. So keeping the executive team involved. So that's a lot of internal communication. Sometimes it's not up to myself, but it needs to be, it can be encouraged by me, or I can help them, but it needs to be led by someone internally. So having that internal communication piece within the organization that keeps the executive team on board as to how the accounts are progressing and how we are tracking towards the KPIs. Having a pilot helps. I'm not suggesting that every company needs to start with a pilot. It's not for everybody. You might have your ideas really clear in mind, and you might have done it before in other companies. So you don't have to run a pilot. You can go full on into account-based marketing. But if it's an organization that has never done ABM before, and there's not executive ambassadors within the organization, proving the points of the concept with the pilot might help. The pilot normally takes around 6 months, so those executives don't have to wait 18 months to start seeing results. And you normally have a smaller investment when it comes to budget and resources when you run a pilot. Keeping them in the loop. That doesn't mean you want to invite those really senior people at every meeting, but you might want to organize a couple of quick ones, perhaps not the whole workshop, where you have key players that are already believing in the program, and they can speak rather than yourself. They can speak already about how well it's improved their life as customer success, for example, or how well the conversation I'm making things up, when conversation from the SDR team went before and after ABM. So having really concrete examples on how you're tracking, it goes back to communication and not launching the campaign, which is not a campaign, it's a whole program, then disappearing and then going back to them 8 months later. Oh, hi, do you remember we're here? This is why you gave us those money. It's about keeping them in the loop, but not bombarding them in a really sophisticated way. There are ways and ways, you can communicate those wins to those people. Yes. And then, if that doesn't work either, sometimes we also need to accept that that's not the right organization. The organization is not ready to do it. It hurts me personally to accept that, and I don't give up easily. But after you've tried all of those strategies and it's still not working, or they might tell you, look, they're clear about not believing in account-based marketing for whatever reason. If you don't have that executive involvement, there's just not that much you can do.
So go back to the run piece, right? So that's when you run.
That was the best advice I gave you.
Yes. So, and you mentioned, you touched on the quick wins and the leading indicators, which I think as we're transitioning from lead-based to account-based metrics. The problem number 4 that we have is measuring with lead-centric KPIs. So keeping kind of the old metrics, doing a new playbook, new programs, but expecting to work and to have those older metrics and KPIs.
Yes, this is so good. So there is, thank you. This is a really important point. One thing about the KPIs in ABM is maybe a couple. One is to revisit them. So just because we have set that sales, marketing, and whoever else is involved in the account-based marketing program, all of us. So it's not that they're not owned by marketing only. It's the sales team as accountable as the marketing team for those KPIs. So that's one thing that I don't want to take for granted. But once we have agreed, the room has agreed on those KPIs early on in the program, and then we design the program, we set it up, we implement it, and we launch it, and we keep measuring it. We want to, as a team, sales and marketing, we want to go back and revisit those KPIs. Well, not every week, but perhaps every quarterly. It's not a bad idea. Sometimes every 6 months, you want to go back and see, are those still the ones that make sense for our overall goal. And sometimes they're 90% still there, or sometimes you don't change them at all. But I just want to reinforce the fact that just because we have set them up in the beginning, the market changes within 18 months. We change, politically, economically, the situation. So you want to make sure that you don't set them and forget them, that you want to revisit them. Then I'm not saying you change them every week, as I said, but just keep them alive. Accountability. It's not just the marketing team. So they're also owned by the sales team. It would be amazing if every organization that launches into account-based marketing assigns those KPIs to the sales team and associates them to their commissions. You might get the sales team a tiny bit more involved and excited, just a tiny bit, if they're going to make money, if they make that phone call, or if they get an extra person opening the landing page, personalized landing page. In account-based marketing, we measure the 3 R's. I don't know if you've heard of that before. I always tend to forget one. It's relationship revenue. Oh God, always the list. Reputation. Oh yes, I have it. It's relationship, reputation, and revenue. Sales teams tend to only want to have, or before they know about account-based marketing, they think, it's just the revenue we need to measure. But then as they come, they come and attend those foundation sessions, and by then, that point in the program, they realize that relationship and reputation are as important to get to the revenue in the long term. Some of my fancier clients, they want to add another R, which is retention. So if you want to have more around loyalty, advocacy, then you want to add retention, but you don't have to. The most important thing in those is not the amount of KPIs that you put down to measure across the 3 R's and in the short, medium, and long term. You can even just have a couple of them per each R, but it's about how sales and marketing are both working towards the same goals and how they are not marketing objectives. So not beautiful marketing people. We are not tracking how many people clicked on your ad. We're not tracking what the traffic to the website was, and it's not about that. Those are not the metrics. So they are more related to those 3 big buckets that I mentioned earlier of the 3 R's, and they are more related to the overall program. It's not just your typical digital marketing metrics that you're measuring there.
Yeah, I think first, so going back to points you said about that change management, I think what's frightening a lot of organizations about this transition is that sales and marketing had their own kind of very clear playbooks. They're very linear playbooks, right? So the management teams and marketing had this very neat flow from campaigns to leads to MQLs. We hand off the SQLs and you go do your thing. And then the sales team have their linear process. And now we're doing a couple of changes. We're combining both of them. And we're saying it's not about one linear flow. There isn't one linear flow. It's not we're changing lead score to account score. And now you're doing ABM. We have various signals. We have various leading indicators. Yeah. It is becoming multidimensional rather than just a single dimension that we are moving forward. And that can be scary because I want a very clear playbook that I can follow. Yes. And if I'm doing that playbook and I get it, then I'm safe, right? My job is safe. I'm getting my commission. Yeah. And now they're forced to think about it in a combined way, in a new way. So it's really breaking down these old paradigms. And I think that could be one of the biggest shocks to the system. They're like, okay, even if I can get my job, if the other teams are not doing their job, as an organization, we're going to fail. So it's not like, sales is winning and marketing, gets beat the shit out of them. So do you see that as well? Do you see that kind of need to educate into this multidimensional?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all you said, all the pains I don't go through, but I see pain points that I see in my clients, again, more from at an enterprise level, because they're big organizations. They tend to work more in silos. They're set in the ways they work. They're more resistant to change. Typically, a startup, a scale up, they thrive in change, and also they have no choice. They change daily. But it's between SMBs and enterprise level, there is resistance to change. And again, it's always about telling them, taking them on the journey, telling them what's coming next, what happens, why, reminding them as to why we're doing this across the program, not just once at the beginning and then you don't tell them anymore, and how you break the news. So change is scary for most people. So how do you make them feel comfortable in that? What really sometimes works really well with some individuals is showing them how other peers, other organizations have faced similar problems, and they had similar challenges, resistant to change, not enough resources, whatever the obstacle might be, and it's showing them case studies. That gives, but that's a human nature. I think it gives peace of mind, and it makes us trust to all of us, and it makes us suddenly trust the process or the person or the program, the brand. So yeah, showing that this is not just one person talking, and they have to just follow what that person is saying. But there are numbers. ABM has been around for 23 years, and it's not a new thing. Just maybe another thing that I should say there, 23 plus, I want to say. So it's a proven concept.
So you're saying like in big organizations, and it's like when you think about this bell curve and, crossing the chasm about the early adopters and then you have the laggers, right? So you're pretty much saying, going back to finding the ambassador, you need to find this group of renegades that is willing to shift their minds quickly, convert them, they will be, but you need to look at that organization as a market that you need to convert to some extent.
Yes,
so now it's how do you convert that market, right? How do you find those people that will get you, instead of trying to look, we're doing this massive reshift, reorg, everybody's like, and that gets everybody in the lockdown because everybody's scared when like this like top down reorg comes. People get scared. Today with AI, everybody's scared generally. So, what's another terror to the mix?
ABM.
Yes.
No, it's not. It's great. It's great. ABM is your friend.
Yes. if it makes you money, right? That's at the end of the day. If it pays the bills, we're happy.
It works. It works. Look, if it's done properly, if it's done strategically, and with the right people involved and within the right time, it's just, I know there are a lot of things that need to fall into place, but when done right, it's a gold mine. It cannot replace the level of personalization and the human touch you get as well at a one-to-one and one-to-few level. It can never be replaced by any other marketing campaign. It's just different. It's that good, and the ROI is extremely high, especially when you go on the one-to-one level. So is the personalization, and it's unbeatable.
Fantastic. So point number 5, moving on to a personal favorite of mine, but I'm biased, underinvesting in data quality and intent signals.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, when I try to think, you talk about the roots of ABM 23 years ago, when I tried to kind of restructure how we got to this point, and because I come from the technology side, I looked at it from like a technology inspired revolution, but there was, of course, the methodology that came. But the way that I seen it is that suddenly we discovered we have signals that were not leads. So we start to have these different signals, which were not somebody filling a form. And we were thinking, what can we do with them? And then we said, hey, actually, we can build a framework around those signals. So I think data and signals are very inherent to ABM. But I would love to hear your take on how much of that is a challenge, and at which stage is that the first thing? Or do we maybe first need to tackle the human aspects before the data and the signal and the technology challenges?
The way I see it, I run every account-based marketing programs, regardless the size of the organization, the budgets, is after we've done we covered the awareness education piece, is to start just from that, the insights and data. So having intense data, I know it doesn't work, in all the countries. I know it's particularly hard in APAC and especially in ANZ to have access to intent data. It just doesn't work here. But that doesn't mean that we cannot run, or those countries cannot run account-based marketing programs. Any piece of insights, it doesn't have to be as fancy as a great list of data coming from an amazing platform, although that will help. But any piece of insights that comes from knowing the customer or the prospects will help inform the overall strategy. So I don't personally start any writing, any copywriting, any even attempting of writing the value proposition and the messaging house for the set of accounts or the account, unless I have digested really well all the research and insights that I've learned from either the sales team, the customer success team, or other, using AI, a lot of other tools, data tools as well. Intent signals are one part of it, of the mix. There is a lot of, what I find is that the sales team, a lot of the times, they know a lot more than they think about the target accounts. Let's say we have selected a few already. And that's the exercise I go through during the strategic workshop. But it's again me facilitating those workshops, asking the clients, the sales team, all the right questions about those accounts, and they give me the most amazing answers. And I love it how by the end of the workshop, which goes for a few hours, they all see it on a Miro board or whatever whiteboard we have. And then I restructure it in a way that makes a lot more sense. And they are blown away. And I have to remind them, this is not me. I didn't come out with any of that. You guys gave it to me. You had all of those insights on account plans or scribbled on a piece of paper, or because you went for a drink or playing golf, or you attended an event with that prospect, with that client. So you did spend time, which I insist it's the best way to gather a lot of insights. Go out there and spend as much time as you can, quality time with your customers or prospects. Go where they already are. Don't force them to come on a platform, for example, where they don't normally, spend time on. So any type of insight and research I can put my hands on, either from the sales team or the data platform. Google News is also great. Information from the website, anything. It's just, it all helps design the program and picture the right, just picture the right framework that will help with account-based marketing. But that's definitely, for me, ABM is a data-led strategy. So the insights piece is the first thing I do.
And I think that also, to add to that, it doesn't have to be like 1 or 0, right? It's a layer. It's layers of insights, so you can put one on top of the other. I think one of the aha moments for me, and I have to admit, this is when I first encountered ABM, I shrugged it off as just another fab and another fad, something that won't stick, because I was like, okay, marketers, they're always, doing their thing. They're trying to pitch something. They're trying to pitch new tech. But then actually the aha moment was you actually see first-party data from you when you start seeing de-anonymized accounts on your website, even just as simple as that. And you're starting to play with that data, and you're starting to see that potential, even something as small as that. And we've seen that because sometimes we come into organizations, we're the first kind of ABM type solution there, just trying to look at it. And then suddenly the penny drops in, why do we need to have these multidimensional signals as opposed to just one leading KPI that we have on a board? We have to connect those different signals, and we have to tell a story with those signals, right? It's not just, okay, I have, this speed from G2, I have this from 6sense, or this from demand base, and I know these external intent, website intent. What does it tell us about where that account is and what we should do with it? Where is it really positioned when it's not willing to speak with us? And I think that is the underlying problem that a lot of these signals are trying to solve. People don't want to converse with sales until very late, right? So if they're willing to speak with them, I think we're in a good situation. A lot of them will do the education offline meaning they'll read on their own. They're not going to engage with anybody. And I think it's going to get even more difficult in the age of AI, where they're just going to ask the model questions, get the answers, as opposed to even go out and research and emit more signals. So a lot of those signals are going to get even darker. So the amount of signal to noise that you're going to have is going to be increasing. So it's going to be a bigger challenge, right?
Yeah, but I guess that's where, and I'm not the expert here from a tech perspective, but that's where maybe those tools, such as the one you work with, they're going to get more sophisticated and play the game that AI wants to play. You guys are going to find a solution.
Yeah, sure. And a great point for number 6, one size fits all personalization. Another favorite, but would love to hear your take on personalization. Where and when do companies do? And what is the problem that you typically encounter when you come in, and what do you recommend to fix it?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the personalization piece. As I mentioned earlier, obviously, the closer you are to a one-to-one type of ABM, which is when you are targeting only one account, it could be a prospect or existing clients. And the closer you get to that, the higher the ROI will be, and the higher the level of personalization and the way you can tailor the message. So the purest form of account-based marketing, the one I prefer working on, is the one where you can also, from a creative point of view, branding point of view, copywriting, you can play around on data as well. It's just fun. It is, the ROI is higher, but so is the investment in terms of time, especially resources and budget. But it gives you so much joy. And the creative teams, normally when I go in and brief them on a one-to-one ABM program, they are buzzing because they can really play around with a lot of creative ideas. There's a lot more that can be done. So that is the purest form of personalization. I do obviously understand that it's not for every brand. Not every brand needs it. Not everybody has the budget to do it. So that's when a lot of brands then choose, especially for pilots, one to few, which is when they select a small number of accounts. The sweet spot to me is between 2 and 5, but you can stretch it up until 15 accounts, providing that account selection process with the right criteria has been done really well. So you lose a little bit, obviously, of the one-to-one personalization, but you can still personalize every asset and the way the sales team speaks and communicates to those accounts at a really high level. So there's still some fun that the creative team or the copywriters, they can have with that. That's when I talk about personalization within account-based marketing. Those are, for me, the two ways in which personalization plays a really strong role within ABM. Then when you go to the one-to-many, it's more programmatic. I wouldn't call it, you're not personalizing anything. You lose all the, any creative assets that you create, that you're putting together and you're sending to those clients, to those accounts. They're in the hundreds. So how tailored can you really be in your messaging? And I think organizations or people that say there is personalization, there is some level of personalization in this programmatic ABM or one-to-many, I think they're fooling themselves. That's not what I see. That's not when I see that personalization can work really well. There is a time and place for one-to-many. There is a time and place for this more programmatic ABM, maybe accounts that are not as crucial for an organization to target. But let's face it, where's the personalization? You tell me, where's the personalization there? How can you send them, an interactive PDF? Or how can you invite them to an executive breakfast? That's just not the way it works.
I think it goes back to what they define as personalization. And are they just like doing what they used to do in the past in personalization and saying, look, we send personalized emails, we're doing one-to-one, or we're doing, look, it's personalized, what do you want? And I think when we go back to those points of signals, the whole point is now you have this new layer of signals that allows you to engage in a more contextual way. You're trying to have contextual conversations at scale. At the end of the day, when we look at personalization, it isn't about being like showing you how cool we are, that we can show you your logo on a landing page. I know my logo, right? I'm the buyer. I know my company. Great. Yeah. Whoop-de-hoo. You've de-anonymized me. Good for you. I think the deeper layer of personalization is that conversational piece. How do I give you what you're actually looking for? And looking at personalization, not also just from the account level, but also from a persona level, and saying, okay, we have a buying committee to sell to. It's not enough to say that we have this account and they're visiting, but do we have the content to support it? And then personalization also can come in and say, can we serve it? So maybe even going back further foundationally, do you have something interesting to say to each of those personas or accounts? And then see, okay, can we serve it? How do we personalize it? But it's not a superficial technical aspect. It's a fundamental piece, right? That lies around what is your content, what are you trying to say? Why should they care, right? If you don't have those things, you don't have anything pretty much.
No, I agree. And I like what you said there. Yes, about the persona level, I would even, especially in the one-to-one, you can go down to the stakeholder level. Obviously, if you're only targeting one account, it's really obvious. You will know the name of the CTO, the CEO, the CFO, all the influencers, all the blockers, and the decision makers. So you can personalize it down to the name of the person you send. You perhaps ship a DM, a direct mail, a piece to. You lose all of that in the one-to-many. Of course, you're not going to do that. Direct mail for hundreds of people. And even if you do, the message is not going to be to John or Scott or Kate. Is going to be a lot more generic. So that's what I also meant. Yeah, with the creative team, having a lot more fun with the type of assets to include into the go-to-markets. That don't just stick to the online world, that they go into events and executive breakfast, for example, event activations, or sometimes an experience, and then we go into ABX there, or a direct mail. It's something that it's sent physically, which I think it's a great opportunity in ABM to personalize, just stepping outside of the digital world, or bridging the digital with the offline as well. There was something else you said there that I really liked.
I think
will come back to me.
Yeah, I think that just from I always go back to your change manager. That kind of stuck with me, and the change that it's not about our processes as sales and marketing. It's about understanding the customer as deeply as we can. Like you said, okay, what do we really know about where they are, as opposed to we know where we want to take this. So it really is that change and shift. And a lot of companies talk about being customer centric. Now it's go to market.
I've heard that before.
So now marketing and sales need to be buyer centric, right? You have to put the buyer in that middle and understanding what they care about, and then say, okay, if this is where they are now, this is what I want to be talking to them about. And the personalization piece is really just doing that at scale. So if we're doing it on the website, we have all these great first party data signals about what they're reading, what they're interested in. They're telling us in a non-literal way. And you'd be amazed how much of that amazing data companies are just throwing away because maybe they're scared of ABM or doing something. But this is already first party. Call it whatever you want. But this is intelligence you own and you're not utilizing.
Absolutely, it's there. It is there. It's that's what I even mentioned Google News. Like you don't even need AI or checking when you're running an ABM at the stakeholder level, and you know the name of the people you're targeting. If you just go and check, and it's data available to everybody. Their social media profiles, they share there a lot more than perhaps they should, but it's available to everybody. And I'm not saying we jump on every piece of insight we get there and we create a campaign around it. But again, this is when the creative team, I do love working with creatives. You might have gathered that by now, but there is a lot of power in bridging getting the creative team on board into an ABM as soon as possible, so that the strategy stays aligned and there's not, we don't lose that. But the creative team has so much fun with what we can find from an insights point of view, from the conversations that the sales team can have with the prospects, or what they post, what these people post on LinkedIn. And I remembered what you mentioned there about it's not about just the set of solutions that we as an organization want to sell to those buyers, but it's about understanding what's keeping them up at night, what are the challenges they're facing, and how can my solutions, how can my brand help them. Maybe I do have something that it can help them with, not solving all those problems, but some of them. So let's focus on those that you can help. Obviously, you want to link it with something that resonates with them. Again, we said it earlier. We might risk here, Avishai, that we are making ABM sound really easy and everybody can just switch off now and go and do it. But it's still an art. It still takes a lot of the right people involved, the right tools, the right timing, the right maturity, awareness. So I just want to be cautious with that. We are making it sound really easy, but it doesn't mean it's simple to put together. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, I think we've been there. We've seen the challenges, we've seen the problems. I think we both have so much experience like running through these challenges. And I think that really it's about, when we try to break it down, the fundamentals is prioritization. And to your point, the signals that we are collecting at the end of the day need to give us that prioritized list, who should we go after? Not because we want to, but because they are telling us, as with the name, either they're a market, they're entering market. But again, that's really shifting the point from we have a group of targets we sell to, and we just kind of systematically try and go and convert the thumb and saying, we're here, we're listening, we identify those hotspots. Now we can go target it. And that's when the amazing creativity comes, because I can get super surgical and have all the creative energy going into this target account who's at the right time. And when it's done beautifully, right? It's amazing to work. It's amazing to see. But there are a lot of these gaps in the way that we've discussed that can really be those pitfalls, right? So there are a lot of places you can fall. You feel like I've heard it many times. I come to a company, we've done ABM, it hasn't worked. And they ask, what did you do? Well, we ran an ABM campaign on LinkedIn and it failed. And that was like the definition of, we did ABM, we failed, and we moved on. So yeah, it is difficult. But it's important to align what it is, right? What doing ABM really is before you can say, I've tried it and failed. Yes.
Agree. Yeah, it's painful. Okay.
All right. The last, the point number 7, overcomplicating or under-integrating your tech stack. So in general, I think there's also the fear of ABM from a CFO perspective. When marketers pitch new acronyms, the CFOs feel this is going to cost me a lot of money. Or they're going to, the leadership, that's always they fear, like, we need to buy new tools, we need to buy new tech.
Yes.
There's that fear. And on the other hand, there's what are the things that maybe can be done to build confidence, as opposed to all or nothing.
I think there is an over-reliance on tech stack. It's a misconception that account-based marketing must be expensive, and that, for example, an early stage startup or a smaller organization cannot even think about embarking into an ABM program because they don't have one of those big, I'm not going to mention one of those big tech stack tech softwares. The way that's not the case. Anyone who ticks a few other boxes, like, that they're ready for ABM, and we will assess that. It's a whole different session. It's that I call ABM readiness, but providing that they're ready, it really doesn't matter much what tech stack they have to start with. I would always work with what they have. They would have something around like a CRM that they use, or something to do about LinkedIn. Whatever tech stack a company has, it's always a good starting point. And ABM is not about coming into the door, asking straight away to spend a lot of money on technology before we even want to, start designing a program. So that's hopefully clarifies that, even companies with not big and complicated tech stacks can start considering account-based marketing. Then once you start proving the point, and you start increasing revenue, the company sees that the ABM is working, that's when then you want to get more sophisticated. You might want to start investing and check out there in my region, within my budget, or for the goals I want to achieve for my industry, what are the technologies out there? And that's when having a great, having someone that really understands from a technical point of view what's available, what's needed for the organization, and advise them, that's extremely helpful. But they don't need, an organization doesn't need 10 MarTech tools to be successful in account-based marketing. I have seen, painfully so, account-based marketing programs fail, not too often, I have to say, but I have seen it from enterprises, global enterprises with the most amazing technology, but then they hadn't done that online. Perhaps one of the reasons why it didn't work. They had all the tech in place, amazing, but they didn't set up on the right KPIs at the beginning. Or the sales team, the sales team wasn't aligned, and the strategy was just so weak. So, you do nothing. You cannot do anything with those amazing pieces of software if you haven't done this insights and research piece up front, and the strategy is not strong.
So what you're saying is the tech alone will not be the strategy. You have to have the strategy. Totally. And absolutely, for that, you don't need the expensive tech at the beginning to get started. You need to have those foundations, and then layer in the tech you need based on the strategy that you see that is working, instead of trying to get everything. So you can go incrementally into it. It's
absolutely.
not, again, it's totally not a one step.
No, yes, I agree. Yeah, which it's something that I see way too often. The technology is a barrier to entry into ABM, and I am a big advocate that it's it should not be the case. So thank you for helping me on this. I feel like sometimes I'm the only one talking about that, and I do rely on softwares when I have them, and there's some great softwares out there, but it shouldn't define whether an organization starts or doesn't start an account-based marketing program. There's always time to go and purchase some softwares.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen is that if the technology helps you prove the point in the organization, for example, even if just showing account level data on engagement or seeing account level signals, helps you make the case on why we should do that transition. So those are cases where maybe like an early technology adoption can help prove the point. Again, it doesn't have to be the massive expensive things, but some things that helped you build that confidence, and then work from that. Because like you said, it did start from the technology, but it actually evolved into the methodology and strategy as the core driver. Absolutely. Now this is driving. The strategy is the important thing. Technology is, again, we're seeing it's getting commoditized, right? Everything that used to be very expensive is getting to be cheaper, is getting to be what they call now unbundled. So you can now start and pick and choose whatever you need at every point. So the game is becoming more flexible. What we're saying, there's no excuses, right? There's no excuses. If you don't have big budgets, it still doesn't mean that ABM is not for you, right? So,
so you think people say that because it's an excuse? I never saw it that way. Okay. I really thought that firmly they believed, we possibly cannot start. We don't have technology, but maybe it's just an excuse.
As someone who spoke with CFOs, I can definitely say those are conversations that are happening in the back room, and they're like, if this is going to cost us another, 100 to 200K, let's slate it. And then resources. So that leads us to point number 8: assigning ABM to spare time resources. And generally in resources, how is resource allocation critical or not critical in your view?
Yes. So it is extremely quick answer. It's really critical. If you don't have either a team, or at the very least one person that is accountable for the success of the account-based marketing program within the organization, it's just going to be seen, perceived from also, the executives, just like another marketing campaign. So it's also, the outlook within the organization. It almost looks like people realize how serious this CMO or this marketing team really is about account-based marketing if they have allocated some time of the marketing person, week to account-based marketing, or one whole resource. Ideally, if an organization can afford it, having one whole resource just allocated to account-based marketing. So it really shows the commitment that an organization has towards account-based marketing, apart from being really handy, because there's a lot of some manual work that needs to be done. And even just the piece of that I mentioned earlier about internal communication, keeping everybody engaged, excited about how ABM is progressing. There's a lot of management internally that the organization needs to do. Not everything has to be or can be outsourced to a supplier. There is a great role that ABM agencies or expert fractional CMOs can play when it comes to account-based marketing as outsiders, but they cannot carry the weight of running the whole campaign. There's still someone external to the organization, so there must be at least one or two key points of contact within the organization that are accountable for the account-based marketing program. Can I give an example? I have many, but I have one do you mind?
Yeah.
Thank you. It wasn't my client, but I know about this case study. It's a company from the US. I think it was in the health space. They had never run ABM before, so they started with a pilot, and they thought that had done all the due diligence. Really, they thought they had ticked all the boxes. They looked at the account list and they had technology. They put enough budget allocated to that. They really thought they were going to be successful in the pilot. After 6+ months, just didn't work. It was not successful. It failed. I don't like using that word, but they had to recognize that it failed very strategically. And I think in a really, really humbly and in a really smart way, the CMO who had run the account-based marketing, checked what went wrong. She could have left it there and just said, "Oh, let's just go back to what we were doing before." But she went back, and with the team, they analyze what went wrong. And the one weak point that they found is that they had not allocated anybody within the marketing team or within the organization to ABM. So the only one change that they made, change that they made when they decided to run the pilot again, is that they allocated one resource, like part-time, a good maybe 3-4 days a week, to be accountable for account-based marketing. So they didn't have to invest money into a new resource. They just allocated part of this person's time to ABM. And that's now ABM is the number one marketing program that they spend money on, and it's extremely successful, and they've been doing it for years now. So the one key for them was to realize, this is not going to run itself. We can't just rely on this tool that we paid money for. The software is not going to do it for us, or we can't rely on the external supplier. It looks like we really need someone internally to drive it. That was it. They had to unfortunately fail one pilot, but I've seen worse. So this is a great learning. And so it is very important. Yeah.
Great point. Number 9, relying on a single channel. So we talked about, the fact that somebody said, like, we did the LinkedIn campaign that in ABM that didn't work. What is your experience in that? How big of a problem, and how often do you even see that happening today?
If relying on one channel is just not ABM, it's just that they're not doing ABM. The magic in ABM, or one of them, is the ability to orchestrate different channels. I mentioned earlier sending DMs, so bridging offline with online, mixing up channels, timings, the types of assets, having perhaps someone likes having the GTM, the go-to-market plan for ABM, likes to have one hero asset that is then surrounded by other assets. But it's never one solution that is going to solve the problem. ABM is about the orchestration strategically, the orchestration across those 18 months, let's say, on the go-to-market plan of all the different assets. And sales enablement must have a big role, play a big role in that. So supporting the sales team with scripts, supporting the SDR team as well. I'm just going to be really direct. It's one channel is not ABM. What are they doing? It's another marketing campaign. Yeah.
And Paola, you're Italian, I'm Israeli. I think a big part of it is accepting the mess, right? There is going to be mess. There's going to be some pieces. It's not going to be all clean. We're going to do some activities. It's not going to be all nice and shiny. So I think for us, it comes a bit more naturally. I think for other maybe cultures, a bit more difficult. But embrace this chaos. Maybe could that be something that we need to teach them to live with the uncertainty?
I am not here to teach. I'm not here to teach anything to anybody. If anything, from all the travels that I do and living abroad and experiencing different cultures, I'm learning from each of them. I'm taking things from them more than me teaching them. And I never thought about that. But chaos is where I come from. And shiny, what is that? There's nothing shiny and perfect in the south of Italy where I grew up. So I'm not even used to that. I don't even know what it looks like. Perhaps that's why I'm in love with account-based marketing. Maybe I never thought about that angle. Yeah.
Great. Last one, we got to number 10, expecting quick campaign length wins. So we are short on attention. We are short in patience in general. We want those quick results. So what is that as a pitfall, and what do you recommend to set expectations?
Correct. That's what you said there. It goes back to starting with those really honest conversations at the beginning with the sales and marketing team and, the decision makers within the organization, and setting the expectation the expectations to what we want this account, this specific ABM program to achieve. Because sometimes everybody, not just the sales team, everybody expects too much from ABM, and they think that ABM is coming in to solve a lot of problems they have. And yes, it's true, ABM can fix some of those, but it's really important. That's why I really love being the bad cop. It's just necessary since the beginning. It's really important to set the expectations right, to draw the line as to what I understand. Let's say I listened, I understand understand all the problems the organization is going through, but I need to be really clear on what this ABM program, we might run 2 or 3 at the same time for different industries, for example, but it's really important that I'm clear on what that ABM program is going to solve for them, because I never want them to go back and say, oh, but it didn't help us, I don't know, expanding into New Zealand, or it didn't help us with that problem we have with the call center team. ABM was never there this ABM program was never there to do that in the first place. So it sounds really basic, but you just got it right straight away. It's about setting expectations and making sure that everybody validates those, and we agree that this ABM program is going to help us achieve ABC, but we'll have to either wait to go to DEF, or we'll have to run another program altogether, or ABM cannot even help with that. We also need to be very honest. So a lot of this is, yes.
Yeah. So just like an enterprise classic, what is the time frame that you typically would recommend to do in order to say, okay, this is the time we need to allocate, and that time we are going to look, but this is the time we need to give it?
From when we start, before or after the implementation? I just want to know if the implementation is involved in this or not.
You choose.
Implementing the whole program.
Let's say you've implemented. After we've implemented, how long does it run before we can say, like you said, we failed, or we didn't, or it's not working? But what is the minimal amount of time you typically recommend? I know this changes, but do you have some ballpark?
Well, no, 6 months. Oh, that's easy. Okay, sorry, 6 months. 6 months. You want to give it at least 6 months. Nothing less than that.
Okay.
You might, and it depends. It's program by program. It depends on the brief, a lot of variables. But you might have some initial quick wins. It depends on where those accounts were on the nurturing stream already when we selected them. How far were they, from converting? So you might get some quick wins in the 6 months, but I wouldn't promise anything normally before the 6 months, and it's case by case. It does take, I think, an enterprise level organization should consider spending around 10 weeks, depending on how agile they can be internally, from the moment they decide to design an ABM program to when they actually go into market and they launch. So a good, 10 weeks each. It's a lot less for smaller organizations, but in those 10 weeks, there will be the few steps that I take them through, which is, the education piece, then setting the KPIs, deciding the account selection process, the type of ABM we want to run, running the strategic workshop, doing the insights and research, designing the strategy, there's a lot, designing the and I'm fast, designing the go-to-market plan, but it's not about me all the time, obviously. There are a lot of stakeholders involved, and that needs time. Designing the go-to-market plan. So this is how you get to the 10 weeks, and then you brief the creative team, and then you go into market. And from there, 6 months at the very least.
Okay. No, sounds reasonable. I think that, sometimes people have it in their mind. It's at least 12, 18 months process. And at least we have that. But yeah, I think that, I think it's also about how much they are the conviction that they have that this is the approach. So if they have done the right work, they're going to be pushing for it more actively, rather than, like you said, if they have a part-time resources, if there's not real buy-in, this could drag on. And eventually you're not going to be able to even make a clear cut. Was this working? Was that? And why wasn't it working? I think the worst part is if they're going halfway in it and it works, it doesn't work. You don't even know why. I mean, there's so many things that were going, as opposed to say, let's have a concentrated, as you said, 10 weeks, then 6 months, have that as a program that we can evaluate and iterate from there. But we do this kind of more aggressively than just kind of, as a back channel or a side note.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And on that note, Paola, I just wanted to thank you so much. This was super insightful and fun, as always. So appreciate it. I mean, you're working with huge organizations, helping them do these onboardings into ABM. So thank you for sharing from that experience. What are the key takeaways? So thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.